Hey, Ellen, Billy, Sophie, Jack. These are just some memories from a bunch of guys that loved Andrew and love you guys. So we're just sharing some stories, some memories, some of our favorite snippets of Andrew, and just some of our thoughts on you guys and your amazing family.
When I think about Andrew, I just think about a loving and caring human being.
When I think about Andrew, I think about one of my favorite players of all time. I think about family. I think about a winner. And he just brings a smile to my face.
When I think about Andrew, I think of just a beautiful soul, full of life and so selfless. Whenever you saw Andrew, you literally couldn't help but smile. He always had that like smirk and grin on his face. He would just look at you and not say a word. You'd have to smile. Like that's all you could really do back. That was his own conversation. And when it came to basketball, he knew he was never gonna dunk the ball or do anything crazy like that. But his work ethic, he knew that if he outworked everyone, he was gonna be and it showed.
When I think about Andrew, I think about someone that was very casual, someone that was very chill, someone that was very serious, but someone that was very goofy. Very competitive and very overlooked. And I think that was his edge. He always had that edge with him. That I was always overlooked on the court and really off the court also. And he took that seriously.
I think about Andrew. I think about a brother and someone that I'm always going to look up to for the rest of my life.
One thing that came to mind would be like just loyalty, because whether it's off the court or on the court, like I always knew that Andrew like had my back or was gonna do like the right thing. It was never like, oh man, like is Andrew gonna do this? Is he gonna like he was your guy, like he was doing it for you and he had your back like no matter what the situation was, and like you never had to question it. And I think that's why he touched so many hearts, because everybody felt his genuineness as a person.
When I think of Andrew, the one thing that really just stands out to me is how humble he was, because he was probably one of the most skilled guards that I've ever played with, and just like talented overall as a human being. And he never let anything get to his head. Like he was always the first one to help anybody when they're down. Like just always put himself aside. Everything was about like the group as a whole, like any situation, the team or the classroom, like it was about the whole group. Like everything was just never about just him alone. It was always about everybody as a whole. Yeah, I love that about him.
When I think about Andrew, I think about, honestly, sounds corny, but the word love. Like, you met the guy once and you automatically love the guy. And I know we all loved him like brothers, and he loved us like brothers. And you didn't have to spend much time with him, but every time you saw him, it was just special. And it was really just times you cherish for the rest of your life. And you don't even realize it at the time, but looking back on it, just like he was taken too young, but the memories we have, honestly, will last a lifetime. And his legacy lives on forever.
When I think about Andrew, actually, I think about like someone that's really charismatic. Doesn't really seem like that until you really know him too. And yeah, it's really like someone happy and stuff. Like he'll always throw one or two jokes in a conversation, make everything more smooth, funny. And yeah, man, Andrew is like he mind his own business. Which is something I like a lot about him. You never heard his name in any kind of conflict issue with anyone. Come to practice, do whatever they got to do, come back with his little skateboard. Like it's just casual, man. That's how Andrew is. Don't worry about what he got on, anything. As long as we touch the court, he's ready to go. So nice, man. It's been a great person to meet. Family is great, and that's pretty much.
I would say the word that comes to my mind is family. Like, kind of like what Brandon was saying, like he's giving him a hug every time he saw him. Like, I feel like everyone that was in his life, that he cared about, like he showed them and showed that he appreciated them and treated them like family. He was just so close with his family, and, it extended to mine. And I remember when they had their nationals, or when nationals were in Halifax and Calgary was here, they had, those student sections under the nets. for like a university or something, and Calgary didn't have that many fans traveling, obviously. He had, I think, all of Andy Kanish and everyone from his family was in that student section just cheering on the team. And I remember when they won and like just seeing them run on and celebrate. It was just really nice to see. And I don't know, I just think of family and knowing how important it was to him. And yeah.
When I think about Andrew, I think about a small town and people who rally around a central place. I think about family. I think about a winner. And I think about somebody who cares about the right things in life.
When I think about Andrew, first thing I think about is winning. Just he's like every team that I played with him on, like we either won gold or bronze like at nationals, and he was just a guy, like he was just such a team guy who would like Eli said, like put the team first every time. Like he was okay with like not like really shining as much and like not having like the star role, but just like winning and doing what needs to be done to win.
When I think of Andrew, I think of like selflessness, like kindness, friendship, kind of like I think of like being yourself and not forcing a personality.
When I think of Andrew, he is definitely a charismatic person. There's not like, he's not like a normal like dude. He has some special traits, and he was a true competitor. And like, yeah, Andrew cared about winning and wanted to get there. And if he cared about you, you knew he cared about you. And yeah, I think with Andrew, like the special thing was that everything that came from him came from like the trueness of his heart, and like he did the things that he did with the right mentality. Yeah, he was a true leader.
When I think about Andrew, I think about a brother and a leader and someone who's always there for other people.
You know, genuine. One word was just like very like love. Like I said earlier, like Carson said, family. You know, selflessness. Like he was just very kind. So, like yeah, you guys nailed it. Like those are the words. You know, I was definitely gonna say.
When I think about Andrew, the first thing that comes to mind is just kind of like he never put himself first, and no matter what, he would always do the right thing. And he was a guy that knew right from wrong very well, and he stuck to that. And you know, he was always a good guy, and you know, he was a guy you could trust, and he was one of the best people I ever met. So when I think about Andrew, I think of a guy that always did the right thing.
My first year U17, so Andrew's first year too. We were roommates for nationals at SMU, and like one night we just super bored and just like I don't know, just chilling in our room together, and then I think we invited like a couple other guys came in our room. We ended up making a Ouija board and just like messing around with the Ouija board for a couple hours, and just like eventually just getting so freaked out and like having to go outside and put it in the garbage and just like leave it there. Man, it was so scary. Like
classic.
Yeah, we did it in our room too, so we were so scared to go to bed that night, thinking like our room was gonna be haunted and stuff.
Like an immediate regret.
I remember when we did that, like we did it like the night before or something, and then I looked up like some demon's name.
Yeah.
And then dragged it across the next day.
Yeah.
And then we looked it up, and it was a demon's name, and you guys were all, you know, yeah, dude. I looked up like just like names of demons before, and like had to make it like spell it out that night.
Dude, that was so scary, man. Like, dude, going to bed in that room, I was literally like, I'm gonna get killed. Like, I was like, this is so like I can't close my eyes, man.
All right, fellas, I can tell my story next. If you're done, Z.
Yeah, I'm done.
He's creeped out again.
Mine is short. I can't go back to that time.
Never going back to SME Res ever again.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so for my little short story here, first year of playing basketball in Nova Scotia, I was fortunate enough to be on the team with Andrew, and one of our first tournaments, I remember, and my first time being out of the country to play basketball. We went to Boston, and I remember every single time we had a tournament, I'd always have to ask around with some teammates. My parents weren't really the type to make the trip, so I asked around, and then immediately Ellen and Billy were like, yes, come with us, and we'll have a great time. We'll take you up, no worries. So it pretty much started as that. I was gonna head up with them, and we were gonna have this tournament, and then I guess on the way up, it kind of turned into, actually, we're gonna stop on the way back in New Hampshire, and we're gonna visit some family. I'm like, are you down for that? Absolutely, yes. On the way back, we ended up staying for like an extra 2 weeks after the tournament, just going through some of their family houses. I'll never forget, that's when I got to know Andrew the most. And his family, they brought me in immediately. I'll never forget how welcoming Ellen and Billy, Jack and Sophie were. It made me feel like one of their own. The amount I got to know Andrew during those 2 weeks, just insane. And the family just bringing me in like that. I've never had anyone do that to me ever before. So yeah, no, I'm thankful. Andrew and the Milner family was in my life.
I guess my story was, it's not like a huge story. It was just kind of the first time I ever like went out to their place. We just finished. It was a Blue Nose for like U14, and we just actually beat Campbell's team, U15 development team.
I remember that.
And I think Danny was your coach too, eh?
Danny was, yeah.
Yeah. And then we just had a plan like to go, like I had the plan to go spend the week there from like the Sunday we finished to like Friday we had our next practice. And I remember I kind of like wasn't looking forward to it too much because the only farm I'd really been to was like my grandparents. So like I was kind of like thinking like how much fun do I seriously have out there? But I remember like just pulling up like to like a big old like kind of classic farmhouse. And their grandparents just living like up the street. It's such like a nice area with a river kind of going on, like going to buy the property. Like it's just a beautiful property. And I ended up having like a great week. Just ate like the best food, hooped at X all day. And I remember it's the first and still the only time I've ever spray painted. Ellen like bought a spray paint to go spray paint the tunnel, which is like the last thing I expected to do, staying out with like the Milners. Was spray paint, but yeah, so that's just a good memory, I guess. Spending that week at their house, and kind of that was the first time I got to know them as like more than just kind of the sweet people that like you meet originally, but like, you know, you find like they're also, you know, fun, and just a great family.
I met Andrew, so I kind of have a bad birthday, so my U14 year was like a year before like Eli and Jane's U14 year, but same thing, kind of was my first tournament. We went to the Red Rock in PEI, and me and him were teammates, and we were both, it was like both our first BNS tournament. We were both pretty shy back then, didn't really like say much to any of the other guys, kind of like just ended up being roommates together. And I honestly only knew him as this kid who would spin basketballs on the end of like pencils in his mouth. Like that's all I really knew about him to that point. But I just remember we were laying there that one night. It was like early still. It was like 11 o'clock. And we were just like, we got like an early game. So we were like, yeah, we should go to bed. And I was like, yeah. And then we were both like laying there for like 20 minutes. And I remember he turned to me and he was just like, dude, like, I don't feel like going to bed. And I was like, yeah, me either. And then we just started talking for probably 3 or 4 hours. And I had never really said more than 5 words to the guy before that. But we talked everything from how he grew up in Andy Ganesh, what it was like going to X camp, like, I told him about my life and all that. We just like, I don't know, every time I saw him, I just kind of always like remembered that one time. And another thing with Andrew that I always think of is I got to meet him really early along compared to some of my other friends, but like my friends Connor Keefe, Jackson Walling, like all those guys, they met him, and the first word they would always use to describe him was just how much of a pleasure he was to be with, and just what a beautiful guy he was overall. And he just like touched so many people's lives, and like Jaden said, just very thankful to have met him, and his family is just as amazing as he is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's some like, and I was looking through like old like pictures I was tagged in with him and stuff, like to kind of like think of a story, and it was crazy seeing like how many of like my friends like Draper and McCall and stuff like.
Oh yeah, no, I remember.
comment on his pictures and shit, like guys that I didn't know that like he was like close, but he's one of those guys like once you meet him once, like it's hard not to really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's a lifetime friend after that.
Big time.
Doesn't take much. It didn't take much with him.
No. Yeah, man. Like you, I was looking through like pictures and stuff. And do you guys remember coming to my cottage like 2 days before nationals?
Yeah.
And my dad, it was Eli. I remember it was Eli's 16th
That was
birthday.
marathon, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My dad took his tubing, and me and him went out together.
Yeah.
And we're like going. We like flew off. We were just sitting in the water, and he was like, "Is there sharks in here?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I just like grabbed his leg, and he just screamed so loud. My dad just started chirping the crap out of him. But yeah, I was thinking about all those memories, man. Good times.
Dude, yeah, I have so many memories with them at your house. Just wild late night memories, like on the boat and stuff, just chilling like on the pontoon, like on the trampoline and stuff.
Man, he put a big dent in the pontoon boat, and felt too bad to. He was like jumped on at a friend's house when I was like backing up off the dock and just like put his knee through the front door, and I got in so much trouble, and we could never figure out how to fix it.
Man, I remember that one video
because I just couldn't blame him.
I remember that one video you took of him. Like you guys were like hanging out one night, and like he just passed out, and you're like, "Look at this weak guy." He just passed out, can't handle it. It was too much for him or something like that.
Oh man, yeah. There was one time that we got back. We were out drinking with like a couple of my friends, and we got back to my house, and he was like, in his parents and my parents were all like in the living room. It was like 11:30 or something, so we figured they'd be asleep. And we got in, they were like all still up, and Andrew was like starting to get like pale in the face. And so I went and like talked to our parents, because like Andrew's just like sick in our old house. We were staying in the kitchen, and then Billy like comes in to talk to us. And so whatever says what's up to all of us and Milner, and then as soon as he walks out, Milner turns and like throws up in the sink, and like just starts washing it down. And then like probably a minute later, he's like bent over the sink, and then we're like Milner, and Ellen comes around the corner, and he sticks his head up, like talks, "Hey mom, like how's it going?" Whatever, like just like talking about like whatever we're doing tomorrow, and then turns around as soon as she leaves and just started throwing up in the sink again.
That's smooth. That's smooth as hell, man.
Yeah,
he used to like try to get under. We were driving one time in Boston to a game, and like we were in the back seat of his like minivan. He was like, "Yo, watch this," and he started just singing this like country song out loud, and Billy turned around and just got like so mad at him. He's like, "Hey, yo, shut the fuck up right now," or something like that. He was just always trying to get under his skin. It was so funny.
Man, you guys remember his love for the mixtapes? Like all the balls like
I know.
mixtapes. Man, he would literally sit back in that minivan, just bro, like.
Yeah, never played video games.
I remember his obsession with like a Keela car.
Every time, like I felt bad at the beginning, but he was just like, no, like he just didn't play 2K like anything. He would just sit and just watch Ball's life.
Yeah. Then he got to. I remember he was obsessed with the Keela car. Then he like got that picture with the Keela car when he was like,
yeah,
that was dope.
When he's playing for the Mill Rats.
Yeah, crazy man. Ball's life mixtape.
The Rats.
Up in the Mill Rats.
Yeah, the Mill Rats.
For Sophie and Jack, your brother loved you so much. Every time you guys came around, he was quick to, like teach a lesson and involve you guys, and always make sure you felt like you were involved with whatever we were doing, whether we were over at your guys' house just playing basketball out on the dirt road, anything. You guys were included, didn't matter what it was. Ellen and Billy, I just want to thank you guys so much. For everything that you've done, keeping me close in your guys' minds and in your lives. Ellen will still reach out to me and see how I started playing basketball again, and just always be wishing the best for me. And I thank you guys for that, and I love you guys, and I hope that we continue to grow a relationship.
Yeah, and I just got one more thing to end. To Jack, I remember in the national championship game, somebody got a big basket. I think it was even Andrew, and he was and it was during a timeout, and you ran out with the flag over your back and was running around the gym. And I remember he looked at you. It was like the middle of a championship game, and he's like, "Man, he's a special kid. I'm proud of him, man." I never tell him, but I'm really proud of him. He's a good guy. And Sophie, like Z said, I remember you being at the games cheering us on and always showed so much support. And I know Andrew really loved you guys, and he's really going to be watching you from above, seeing all of your accomplishments and carrying his legacy forward. And to Billy and Ellen, we all love you. Thank you so much for being like second parents to us. I know you follow all of our journeys and paths, and I know you'll reach out to me if you hear about my games and stuff like that. So just know we're always thinking about them, and we're always thinking about you guys, and we hold you close in our hearts.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, that's one more thing that I just want to add, and I feel like I speak for all of us, is that I just want them, the whole Milner family, to know that Andrew he'll never be forgotten. He'll always be in our minds, and that's a promise that I think we can all make, is that he will never be forgotten.
Okay, well, I don't know, being a guy that grew up with an older brother, Jack, if my older brother was half as nice to me as Milner was, it would have been a lot easier. I don't know. It would have been a lot easier. Let's just say I'm happy I'm taller than him now and a bit bigger. But no, I mean, he loved you guys so much. And I think Andrew was glad that you didn't start playing basketball, because you probably would have ended up being a lot better than he was. I know Billy's glad you're playing hockey. And but yeah, I love, and Sophie, I mean, I've never honestly seen you play, but from what I hear, you have a lot of what your brother did in you, just in terms of the way you see the core play and just make the other people around you better. So stick with it. If it's something that you love, stick with it, because you have obviously enough talent. And to Billy and Ellen, I want to say I miss you guys, and obviously to Jack and Sophie, I hope you guys are all safe now. And I just really look forward to seeing you this summer. I hope Sophie and Jack give you guys plenty of excuses to come and stay at that house, because it just wouldn't be a regular summer without seeing the Milners. So I love all you guys.
Same thing with Eli. Like I grew up with an older brother, so I kind of know what it's like to get picked on a little bit. And you know, with seeing Jack around, like Andrew was never that guy to him, and he would always be like, I remember like when our teams would be at Eli's house there, Jack would always be on the trampoline with us, like playing basketball with us, trying to dunk on us. Like we'd be dunking on him, like, you know, stuff like that. And so like he just had like a different kind of relationship with him. And then with Sophie, I just remember her being at a game just cheering super loud too, just like her parents. So we always loved that support from them. And then getting to know Ellen and Billy over the years, they've always just been so nice. Like they've always reached out. Like when I went away to school my first year, like they would just reach out and just ask like how about my games, about the team, like stuff like that. And we just always stayed in contact, and so that was a relationship like I really cherished. And so yeah, I miss all you guys, and then hopefully I see you guys soon.
It was a few years ago when Andrew would have been in his first year. I would have been in my first year in the AUS, and it was at Nationals. So obviously Calgary came to Halifax for Nationals. And it was just like a kind of a nice, like encompassing moment of kind of who Andrew was. So Eli and I were chilling kind of at his apartment downtown in Halifax, because we were staying at the West End, so his apartment was pretty close. We went there to hang out a little bit, and I think even though Andrew was kind of supposed to be, you know, spending some time with his team and being focused on the goal at Nationals, he came and spent some time, hung out with me and Eli for a little bit just to catch up and say what's up and to, you know, check up on us. And that was kind of, you know, it was really nice to see him. We hadn't seen him for a while, and it was kind of just something that encompasses who Andrew is, someone who, you know, always cared about his friends, wanted to check in on his friends and see what was going on. So
this is just a kind of story about how like just Andrew's like attack method on the court and just kind of who he was, just, you know, a silent killer out there. But it was about a year and a half or maybe 2 years after we won our nationals together for the first time. And I was coming back home from, I think, UAB at the time, and I told Eli to meet me at the gym. We were going to play some one-on-one, and Andrew showed up with him. I didn't know Andrew was in town, or I don't know what he was doing, but I guess he was in town. And first like 3 or 4 plays, Andrew got the ball. Like we weren't talking much. He wasn't just like gave me 4 buckets in a row without saying anything, and just like haven't seen him play for like a year and a half. And I'm like, man, like he is like good. Like I just didn't expect it. He just like, he gave me that little smirk, you know, like he doesn't talk much on the court. He's not cocky. He just knows he's good. And it was just funny to see. And just now thinking back about how good of a player he is and how much of a competitor he is. You know, just love going against him and playing with him.
So we had tryouts. I think he was in like, I don't know, Fall River or something. And, you know, provincial tryouts, like mostly the guys like in Halifax, I mean, kind of extending to Sackville, kind of know who to expect being there. And, you know, as cuts went along, you know, we kind of expected who was going to make the next cut. And there was this little white guy from Antigonish making the cuts. I was kind of like, man, like, I didn't really notice him as much at the start. And as it kept going on and on, like, he was just showing, like, kind of like what Nate was saying, he was a silent killer. Like, he wasn't loud and obnoxious. He was just doing what he needed to do. You know, whether that was making the right pass, just crazy handles with the ball, hitting shots, and yeah, making the team. And we ended up, you know, being good friends from that. You know, my family and his parents, really close. And yeah, it's just really seeing him summer and just like his handles and how crafty he was with the ball. Like, he was just natural to basketball. Like, I remember seeing videos of him like spinning the ball on a pencil sticking out of his mouth or something. Like, he was just always doing stuff like that. And I was like, I don't know. That's just kind of the stuff he could do with it. So he's just a fun guy to be around. And yeah, I was just really glad that I had that opportunity to be on the same team with him and see him grow over the years.
My favorite thing, like Andrew was all just about, like, for me, it's just like love, and like, you know, he was just like that calm dude, like Nate was saying. And when Calgary came down to play St. Mary's, an exhibition game, just like a little over a year ago at SMU.
Yeah.
He texted me and said, "I'm going to be in town. You should come to the game." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll be there." And I was like, "Are you guys having any shoot arounds or anything like that?" And he's like, "Yeah, we're going to be at SMU like later today. Come through." So I went, and I was the only dude there. And like the coaches and players didn't know me, so they were like, "Who the hell is this guy, Andrew?" And like Andrew was telling them about me or whatever. And then after watched shoot around, and then he gifted me like with a Calgary shirt and Calgary socks. And like another thing like about with like me and Andrew, like every time like I see someone that I've never seen for a while, like, and even you guys, like, will give props and stuff, but like with me and Andrew, literally every time that we see each other, it was all just like full hug, like a full hug. And like that's one of the things that like I loved about our relationship. It wasn't just props, but like we hugged each other, and it was like, you know, that's one thing that I'll always just remember about our friendship and our relationship.
I met Andrew when he tried out for Team Nova Scotia, the U17 team. He was an underager, so in grade 10, and got to coach him for that summer with the U17 team. And basically, like right after that summer, well, two things. At the tryout, I think people weren't kind of sure how he was gonna fit in necessarily with that team, because there was a lot of talent. And I just remember being able to pick teams, and he was the first guy that I wanted on my team, just because with his leadership and, you know, his skill level was just crazy at that point. And then right after that summer, I invited him to CVU right away just to like check things out, because I just thought he had so much potential to be great. And then when I transitioned to the University of Calgary, I just think immediately he was one of the guys that we went after, just because of, you know, what we felt he could do and be a part of, you know, how he could be a part of something special, and just because of the person that he was and things like that. But I mean, I think one of the coolest memories of him was that summer with the U17 team. He struggled at times. He was kind of in and out of the starting lineup, you know, turned the ball over a little bit too much at times. But when we got to the national final, he stepped up and wanted to guard RJ Barrett in the second half, and he was a pretty good player. And basically, you know, just we had some foul trouble, and we played a couple different defenses in a box and one, and he just did a job. Like, here's you know, a 6-foot white kid from Antigonish, Nova Scotia, going up against basically the #1 recruit in the world at the time, and it was just pretty crazy for him to have the confidence to be able to do that. And I think that was always the coolest part about Andrew too. You know, even meeting him when I was coaching at St. FX and seeing him shooting in the Aux gym in there, right? Like, his confidence was just through the roof, but I think his confidence was through the roof just because of like how much he prepared, right?
We played Montana State.
Yeah.
We played Montana State, and he went in, and he had that little hip swivel hezzy that he did, and he hit one of the dudes from the kid from Portland, hit him with like 3 times in a row. And yeah, it was you, me, and Barnt on the bench, and you just kept like kind of looking down, like, I told you. and,
oh yeah,
and,
for sure.
And then I mean, it was the same thing in the national tournament, in the games that he played there, the first, especially 3 quarters of the national championship game. There was just, he had something about him that I think is certainly a skill set thing, but it goes someplace different than simply a basketball muscle memory thing. There was something about the way he carried himself in the game that allowed him to unlock that. I mean, like you said, I mean, wildly confident, but there was a competitive nature of him that kind of unlocked that stuff too.
Yeah, not arrogant. Like, I think that's the thing too. Like, not arrogant. Like, just like so sure of himself. Like, you know, and that was what I always felt was incredible about him. He's just like so sure of himself, and nobody really knew why. Like, he would wear the purple University of Calgary sweatshirt, and like he had a pink pair of Vans. Like, just had this confidence about him for some reason.
We talked a long time about Andrew. There would be a lot of that's obviously, I mean, he had plenty of Indiana and Nova Scotia in him. So like he was a skilled basketball player. Like, he understood how to play the game. But what's special and what we want to kind of remember him by, even though all of those things are important, it was kind of the personality traits that unlocked the passes, that unlocked, you know, the capacity to get in the lane and throw up a 9-foot floater over a footer. You know, like, because you can have all that stuff, but like for me, like, I would never have had the personality traits, maybe the boldness to kind of go about there. So, I mean, I know Coach Van Horn talked about his kind of him as an artist in at his funeral and the service that we had on campus. And I think that he nailed it with kind of that description of who Andrew was.
When he first got to U of C, just how he kind of commanded the veterans' respect right away. Like, having a guy like Johnny Verone come up and say, who, I mean, was a man of few words, obviously, but like to come up and say, yo, this guy could play. Like, who's this guy? You know, and just that knack about him that made people around him so much better. And I think more than that, guys really wanted to play with him. Like, they got excited to play with him all the time, right? And I mean, I think that takes me to what game? I think it was the McGill game in the national semifinal. The year we won, we were okay. Our defense was incredible that game, but we were just kind of teetering a little bit early, and he came in kind of in the second quarter. I think it was his second shift, and he just kind of changed everything around. He came off a couple pick and rolls, hit Connor on a couple of rolls to the rim. I think that one was for a dunk and one was for an N1. You know, hit a jumper in the lane, and just kind of allowed the offense to really get rolling how it needed to. And, you know, like I said, in that moment, you know, score close, you know, national semifinal, just like whatever. He just kind of went in there and did what he always did, right? And I think that's what was so cool about him.
I think one of the maybe the healthy psychological coping mechanisms of something like this is trying to figure out what lessons something terrible has been able to teach you, or what kind of beautiful things that these reveal. I think that that's kind of a big one. I think about a small community and how much they cared for a young man. And it, again, all this stuff goes back to the same place. there's lots of communities out there that have hoop stars, like that are skilled, but that communities kind of pass over. And so there was something about him that he carried that made him everybody's, it's who they wanted to pull for. And when
he was the town's son, man, he was the town's basketball son. That's what it was.
And so there's just so many things that go into that pot of stew to get someone to be in that place. You had to have the charisma, and he did. You had to have the sense of humor, which he did. There's a humility that needed to be there alongside his, again, it's not arrogance, this intense confidence about himself and what was important. And so all those things, they really were mixed perfectly in it. And
the one really part that I just feel the luckiest about is just kind of seeing the transformation that he made over time, of knowing him, you know, I mean, I didn't know him his entire life. I mean, I obviously saw him in the gym at St. FX when he was very young, but to kind of see that transformation from, you know, teenager into young man into man, and you know, that silliness that did exist within him, you know, but how that matured into, you know, a kid who just enjoyed life more than anything. And I thought that was a pretty amazing quality that he had too, as, you know, as you said, as intense as he was and as competitive as he was, and how confident he was in his ability, he had that ability to just enjoy life as well. And, you know, obviously love his family as much as he did. You know, it was that part was so special, you know, just how, you know, as far away from home as he was, you know, how important his family was and how close to mind they always were, and kind of everything that he did. And you could see that as he got older and matured. And I mean, like I said, it was a pleasure. And, you know, it's something that we did this year, and it was something at CBU, and I'll continue to do. And we call it 4s up because you wore number 4. And so every picture that we took, you know, all of our guys always held 4 up. And, you know, when we went into a huddle every year, and we didn't put fists into the huddle, we put our 4 fingers into the huddle. And that's something that I'm going to do for the rest of my career as a coach, to commemorate Andrew for sure, because of, you know, how much he meant, and to me personally, and just to the basketball community, and just to let everybody know that, you know, he was a special person.
The quality of his life is not bound upon obviously the longevity there, but the fact that he made such an impact on so many people's lives in such a short amount of time. And in the same way, it's just like, you left Nova Scotia, the University of Calgary, my life, your life, CBU, better than you know, in essence, it was found. And I just think that, again, those are things that go so much past all just the tangible skill sets and the tangible components to him, to something that was just a unique concoction of who he was.
Yeah, no, it's we definitely love him, that's for sure.
You know, I think we'd be a little bit amiss not to talk about just how he got to that space. You know, like what the driving forces are behind someone like him. And as far as stories go, and Ellen, every time I am around Ellen and we're talking to somebody about our relationship, I always tell them this story. And, you know, to this day, I kind of joke with her about it. But the first time I met her, I was in the office across the hallway from the men's basketball office. So it was that point where we had our 2 offices kind of kitty corner. And so I was in my office working, and at the same time, Mason Foreman texted me and saying, "Hey, my grandma's in town." And then Milner had texted me.
Yeah.
Milner had texted me 5 minutes earlier saying, "I'm bringing my mom up to see you guys." So I'm in the office typing away, and I hear someone coming down the hallway, and I hear some voices. So I walk in, and at this time they were still rookies, so they all blended together. And in my head, the grandma of Mason was, and I look to Ellen, and I just go, "You must be grandma." And and she looks at me, and it's great because you know Ellen so well, that I mean, her sense of humor is, I mean, Andrew got it from her, not Billy. Sorry, Billy. But she looks at me, looks back at Andrew, and she's like, "I don't like him."
So such a perfect response.
I don't like him.
Yeah, perfect response.
And so, I mean, and so every time when she would come, I'd say like, "Hello, Grandma," and then I would try to get her something to try to make up for it. But her and I will say again, you try to find the silver linings in this, and I love Ellen, like kind of an extension of a mother now to me. Her and I speak every other day, every 3 days. We're both English majors, and we talk books and share books with each other. Sometimes throughout this year, when I was hurting with some stuff, I would express that to her, and she has been as transparent as they come with it. And her efforts to stay involved with Mombi and David and Lucas in my life, and the guys that Andrew was around, is so uniquely special. Like I that was something I wouldn't have necessarily guessed or considered how special of a person that is, to be able to push into that, because it's all reminders of something really great, but also something very terrible. And so to push into kind of that dark place to really own the light, I think is something pretty unique about a person. And so when you talk about Ellen and Billy, there's a reason why Andrew was all the things that we were talking about.
Yeah, and I think just like the literal representation of that was just when we were all there at that house in Antigonish having, meals together, and everybody kind of in close quarters, like sitting on couches, and just like having Ellen just like literally put herself like right in the middle of the group and just saying like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I agree, just like her frankness and her openness has just always been something that is just stunning, and
one of the strongest women I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. And Billy too, just like how he's pushed forward in his own way to process this, and how everybody does things differently, and how we've all dealt with it as well. And I agree. I love them so much, and they've been so welcoming to me, us, the families that Andrew has been a part of, and we can just forever be grateful for that.
One of the things was I had some fun experiences with Ellen and Billy prior, but my relationship with them has taken off over the last year, and it is devastating to think that it needed something like this in order for us to have such a good relationship. And so for me, like, I made a very intentional effort this year to take time to get to know some of our players' parents. Brett Layton's family and I think is someone that I just, because of that, really kind of poured into. Max's family and I, and there's, as a coach, I just think that you look at those things and you just go, yeah, if you didn't have to take this experience to learn the lesson, but now that is, I mean, what do you take forward with it? And I think that that's a valuable thing to carry with. And obviously I credit both Billy and Ellen and kind of at the root of that.
The story that's going to stick with me, I think, for the longest was when we were celebrating his life that day, in Antigonish, and they opened the Ox Gym at St. FX, and everybody went in there, and we played pickup basketball, and it was it's honestly one of the most vivid memories I have and will ever have of going out there, and just the kind of the basketball community getting together and everybody who played, and on a day where everybody was sad, just to kind of see the joy and how basketball brings people together. And for it to be you and me and Van Horn and Ellen playing 4-on-4 on the same team, getting up and down, and just kind of seeing her enthusiasm and how much she loved that. And man, it was one of the coolest things that I'll ever do. Probably the coolest thing that I've ever done. And, I'll always remember that.
Hey, Billy and Ellen. My favorite memory of Andrew is when we were on a road trip for U15, and he had just decided that he was going to go to RNS. We were in the hotel room, just me, him, Alex Muse, and Jaden Falls. And we just spent the entire night, probably about 4 or 5 hours, just talking about really just the idea of a prep school and everything he was going into, and just his whole passion and how much he was excited to get into it. Really just is what drove me to want to go to RNS and spend 3 years with him there, like boarding with him, all that. And
yeah, a memory that I'm never gonna forget about Andrew was at my nationals in when I was in U15 and he was playing U17, and that was the summer that I was committed to going to RNS, and I knew he was there playing, but we've never had a conversation up to that point. And I was just watching a game like right after I played, and he came up to me and kind of put his arm around me and just introduced himself. And I could tell like he was super excited, and like so was I from watching him play. And that was really a big moment for me because, like, again, I was coming in as a grade 9, like I was super nervous, and he made that really easy for me in that transition. And then when I got there, like he kind of took me under his wing and showed me like all around the school and how everything worked. And like I'll never forget that about Andrew and how welcoming he always was.
One of my favorite memories about Andrew would be the year after he left, and it was after our first game. I remember he messaged me and we talked for a while, and he's just telling me things that he thinks I can work on and what I've got better at. And that just kind of showed how even after he left, he still was watching back at us and caring about us and making sure that we're working hard and making the program better.
Hi, Ellen and Billy. I have a lot of great memories just listening to these three guys talk. I think it brings back memories of the whole group and how instrumental Andrew was in keeping everyone together. I'm going to go a different route here. I know that he has tremendous amount of love for kids, and he was great around my kids. He always loved to talk about Griff and how he was doing. If he texted me while he was at Calgary, that was always the first question. How's the kids? How's Griff? How's Aaron? My best memory of Andrew, though, ironically comes from a negative situation. At the end of his tenure in grade 12, he made a teenager choice, I guess you could call it. Got himself in a little bit of trouble, a little bit of hot water, which isn't the end of the world. And then I never forget that, he had to go home for a little bit. And I remember speaking up and saying, I'll drive him. I told Mr. McClellan, I said, I'll drive him to the bus stop. And I knew it was going to be a long bus ride home for him, so I knew he was coming home to you guys. And I knew it wouldn't be a very exciting welcoming. But we drove slow, and we got to the bus stop. And by the time we got to the bus stop, I remember Andrew was crying pretty bad. And I just remember telling him, I was like, Andrew, the whole point isn't the fact that you got in trouble. I could care less that you got in trouble. But when you got in trouble, I didn't have a phone call. You didn't call me, and you needed me. And I'm always there when you need me. So you got to call me when you need me. And honestly, that, he committed, and he was the first recruit, and obviously he brought Will, and then everyone else came after him, and that was huge. And basketball is a passion of ours. Good kid, great student, works hard, all those good things. just a positive human being. But what stands out for me with Andrew Milner is the fact that when he has those moments when things are challenging and things are difficult and it could go one way or the other. And I never forget the last thing he said to me before he got on the bus was, I love you and I'm sorry and I'll never happen again. And I remember after that, our conversations were so more in depth. He was always there when I needed him, but when he needed a phone call or he needed a chat, he immediately called me, and he knew that I would always answer, always. And, you know, that moment for me was the moment that I realized not only did I have, you know, as close to a son next to me as possible, but I knew I had a very, very good best friend for the rest of my life. And I still do to this day.
So was that the Christmas dinner when he came up? Like,
Last year?
Last year. You remember that?
Was that last year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool because it kind of felt like we were all kind of back at school, like banging jokes, everyone just kind of around, and it felt like it used to. It was we never really had like obviously like our team was still close, but like Andrew just came in with even the new guys we had, and it was just like we were all on the team again. And that's a memory I think I'm always gonna kind of cherish, having that time with them, sat around the RNS dinner table, just kind of talking and catching up. That was cool for me.
I remember walking by the table and he was still hammering Jack about his passport or something.
Yeah.
Jack can't write. Jack's signature on the back of that thing was probably one of the hardest laughs I've ever had in my life. And Andrew was the one that found it, and it was literally for J he wrote a 2. For OHN of John he wrote on, and then he forgot the F on Fifield.
There was a 7 in there too.
The 7.
Yeah.
I mean, just after hearing that story, like I just definitely say Andrew was by far like the glue of our team. Like every day, like if he wasn't on our team probably would have been broken up into more like groups, if you know what I mean. Like usually, like sometimes in teams, if there isn't that person to kind of keep everybody together, they'll split off into their own kind of sections. But like without him, we might have ended up like that. But he definitely just held everybody together, and he was the reason we were as close as a team, for sure.
I think, you know, the one thing I'd like to say is just, you know, this year was monumental for our program. It was historic for Canadian high school basketball, in my opinion. We started this year with a video from Andrew Milner that he made after he graduated for the new guys, for the returning guys. And that video will always be played. And most of these, well, Will's made a video. Guys have made videos for our preseason speeches. But this year was dedicated to Andrew. I've spoken already about, you know, how Moose was made a captain this year. And that was because of the last conversation I had with Andrew and how proud it makes me to know that Andrew's last words to me face to face were speaking up for his teammate, his brother, and Jack, and making sure that he earned that right to be a captain, and I immediately agreed with him. I have to say, though, that there's so many odd coincidences this year that just make me smile and think. I've talked about the fact that there was 13 alumni this year, graduating 3 last year. It made a good 13, and that's obviously Andrew's number. You know, we won our last game. I double-checked the score. We won our last game against the number 2 team in the country by 13 points, and it was our last game to go 12-0. Ironically, we weren't 12-0 for the first time ever, probably in the history of high school basketball. Team from Quebec, traveled in September in preseason to play us in our home gym, and we beat them by 30. to make our regular season 13-0. And then on top of everything, and I swear to God, he was just laughing. But COVID-19, are you serious? A goddamn pandemic that shuts down the entire globe? Very few people realize Andrew didn't go to nationals in his final year. Andrew got a concussion and he was unable to go to nationals. I'm pretty sure Andrew said, you know what? I'll let you guys go undefeated and be the best team in the country. But damned if I'm letting you guys play in nationals, and I didn't even get a chance to play in nationals. So many things, you know, days that I wake up and, you know, you just feel it. Like you go in the gym at 6 a.m., you know, you're there. I'm there at 5. Always. I'm just there early, waiting. See who's the first one in the door. But I feel that I was beaten there already. Like, I believe that stuff, and I'll always believe that stuff. And I know that, you know, for what Andrew was and what Andrew continues to be, I mean, there's meaning there. I know there is.
I really appreciate you guys doing this, taking the time out of your day. I know everyone's kind of dealing with their own thing right now, but I really appreciate you guys getting together, and hopefully we can put something together.
I think we can also, I can speak for all these guys and say we really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
this is like what you did last year, what you're doing this year. I talked to Ellen and Billy about you. They were blown away by what you did. You know, that's the signs of just a good human being. And I remember when you were recruiting, Andrew, that was always the big thing, that, you know, you're just a good dude and just a good guy. And that goes a long way in life. And I certainly will never forget it.
I remember one day I was walking in the gym. I think it was like probably during the summer or spring, like after the season or something like that. And Andrew was playing ones versus, like, I think Toby and Ali, which are like guys that are much older than him, more physical than him. And I just remember him having like sweatpants on, just like a t-shirt, just kind of like casual as hell. And everybody was talking trash, like, yo, who's better, all this. So that's why Andrew just said, like, oh, let's just play ones there, let's see. And I just remember Andrew just kind of going like 5 straight on like Ali, just scoring every way possible you could think of. Step back, going to the layup, shoot threes, just everything. And I say this story because Andrew was someone that like was super overlooked just because of his appearance. But people didn't understand just how competitive and just how smart he was, as not just as a player, but just as a person. Like, just he was competitive at everything. And I think that's one summer, one instance where he earned two new guys' respect, like just like that, you know? Like, people can say, oh, he's good, but you don't really believe it when you look at him until you see him play or you play against him. And that was one story that definitely stuck with me, when he just destroyed the older guys. And it's just like, this guy is real. And yeah.
I can remember one day me and Sash, where I was hanging out a lot with Sasha, and Sasha was hanging out a lot with Andrew. So kind of, you know, it got us three quite a bit, sometimes depending on the day and everything. But yeah, just one day I think Andrew come to like see us, and he just out here with his his skateboard actually, you know. So I'm seeing Andrew coming with a little skateboard right before practice. So I'm like, yeah, this guy really like, you know, I feel like he having a good day, and he's rolling his skateboard like quite a bit. So he come, I'm like, yo, where you coming from? He's like, I was just coming from the crib, got the tuck and everything. So we end up, you know, going to the gym and everything. I think I remember this practice, he forgot his stuff. So I think he just had a shirt with him, and that's actually how he is, you know. So he just had whatever shirt he had on him, everything. I remember he left up his Adidas shoes too, kind of old and everything, you know. So it was just a regular practice, but I'm like, damn, this guy must be not ready to practice, you know. I'm just seeing him coming to the skateboard and everything, and you know. So whatever his practice started, and I remember that practice, I think he had like 2 or 3 like straight quick bucket, you know. So I'm like, I'm looking at him like, damn, like it's really one of those days, you know. But yeah, like actually, like Andrew was just like so casual on any given day, you know. So you could never look at him where like, I think it's just like that's just him. But nah, it's good to just experience somebody like that around us, and you know, make us feel like just more human, I guess. So that's my little story I got.
And to add on to that is very true. He was such a casual guy, and I think that's one of the reasons why our team was so good, because we had a bunch of guys that weren't like superstitious about anything, you know, like someone could be playing a bad game and then the next guy just goes crazy, and like nobody really cared. We're just so casual and just so focused on the game, and not, you know, like he came in with the same shoes every day, like some old ass black carry, like every day same shoes. And then I think one time, maybe we went to Quebec or something, he came in with some purple shoes, like everybody was just like, what are you doing? He's like, bro, don't worry about me. That's just kind of like the person he was, like you said, even just wearing a random shirt and just like, bro, where your practice jerseys? Like, yo, I don't know, just but at the same time, that didn't change anything from on the court. Like anything that happened off the court, it just didn't change on the court. Yeah. So that's pretty amazing to see.
When I think about Andrew, I think about all the things that have just been said. He was very goofy in one way, but then also a super hard competitor and dialed in and wouldn't screw around when it was game time. And I think other things that I think about Andrew is just the way he played the game was just, he had a flair to it, and he just, like that can't be taught. I think he just had it in him.
Yeah, I'll add some if I can, if you don't mind, Max. Like you said, like just you're about talking about like the way he played the game is so smooth, man. Like, you know, like it's one of the guys where I've seen like everything he does is never forced, you know, everything real so smooth, like he let the game come to him, like he'll take the right shot. He knows like in the flow of his game that something gonna come his way, you know, like he's never on the rush, everything seems really, he's never rushed, he's never worried, and like, yeah, that's a lot of things. Like even like I remember a few times practicing, they were like said on the second team when we play 5-on-5, you know, second unit, and he always the guy that when the second unit lose and you know the starting five we're reading is the first guy that's mad. You know, you'll call out a few guys like, let's get it. Like it's not because we're in the second unit. So like this side of him has always been like, yeah, exciting and fun to watch. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and then that smoothness came also like in the way he moved, just like from how he shifted his weight, and like he wasn't like crazy athletic or anything, but like just that was just him, like like cognitive, but also like physical, how he moved and like how he special.
100%.
Yeah, I feel like from my perspective, I feel like last year I was telling that Andrew was the most like family-oriented guy in any team, you know, and I really meant that just because knowing his people and his family were really like, you know, they were really like, I feel like they were really in the team with us. So like it's something I feel like he just had in him as well when it comes to loving people and, you know, being attached to people and stuff like that. So you come from an amazing family, so I have nothing to say about that. Their people are great, and I just wish them the best in those times.
Andrew was really close to his family, you know, back home and with the team, and you know, that came in the light when I think during our team trip, he kind of confessed a little bit of like what he had to go through, I think, with his mom, and you know, a scenario that I don't know if he wants out there, but you know, they kind of overcame something there, and he said that he almost lost his mom, and that really made him understand the importance of family and how important she was to him. And obviously he comes from a small town, and he always talks about, you know, like it's like the whole village was my family, because they really helped me, whether it's from like getting from point A to point B for practices, for games. Without like everyone, like I wouldn't have been able to, you know, go to RNS and like go to the tournaments in Halifax, you know. So he talks about that a lot with his family, and then with us, he just talks about just being a support system because he's someone that's pretty closed off, like we talked about a little bit before. He doesn't really talk to like everyone. Like you need to kind of be one of the special person to kind of get to see Andrew for who he really is, and you know, the way he just talked to you when you were part of his family, it was just so much different. And like Max said, like when he talked to you, when he did something, it came from like his true being, like his love for someone. So that's what I saw. Like, you know, that's why I think he's so close to his family back home, and then his family here. It's just because he's someone that's pretty closed off, and once you make it through the wall, it's like you're stuck there forever, you know.
The first time that I really noticed how important family is for Drew was when we went to the first national championship tournament with him, and there was just this like fan block of Milners. We were like, who are those guys? And they were just phenomenal the whole way. And yeah, that picture where Drew jumps into the arms of his siblings, and it's just, I mean, that's what he was. And he grew up in an amazing family, and I think we're very lucky that they are part of our extended family, and that he made that possible through coming here.
Agreed. As much as Drew was part of our family, and you know, and became someone that's very important to us, because of his connection to his family just became just as important. I mean, I think I talked to Alan like so much. Every time I pass by and Ganesh, I stop by, you know, not their place, but like we stop by and we just like say hi to her. Or anytime we're in a game around that area with CBU, she's always there texting me before the game, like, how did it go? Like, oh, I watched the game online, and it's just like, that's who Andrew was, but that's where he got it from, right? And yeah, like as awesome as Andrew was, like his family is just as, maybe even more, and they're the reason why he's the way he is. And even with Andrew not here, like they're just as connected to, at least me, I can tell from my personal experience, at least to me, they're just as connected to me as when Andrew was here, maybe even more because of the experience we went through.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I see it as I feel myself very lucky that Andrew came here, and that I not just had the chance to get to meet him, but also his family. And yeah, they're just special people. I think there's not a lot of people out there anymore like that. Marilyn, Andrew's grandma, texts me and Jackson after every game, and like she stays up like, I don't know what time it is in during our games, and just amazing people. Yeah, and I'm very, very thankful.